What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for May 8th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. And in what has become a tradition here, happy hump day. But as always, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, are Philly fans getting too soft? And 75% of you said no. And I absolutely agree. I think it's a stupid narrative that was just put out there to try to get some clicks and some listens, but I just don't see it. Don't want to go on the rant again, but just dumb. But as always, thanks for participating in the question of the day. There will be another question later in the show. A couple quick housekeeping items. Next week, starting Saturday, I will be on vacation, but the podcast will still be coming to you. You probably won't notice anything on Saturday. It just might be a little earlier. I'm going to get up early before we go on our 8-hour plus drive down to the Outer Banks to record. And then the rest of the week, it'll be more on the weekend schedule. The only thing that might be a little shaky is Saturday. The following Saturday might be a shorter podcast, depending on what happens. But I will be coming from North Carolina. We'll have all my equipment minus the second screen. So you'll still get the podcast, just will be a little bit later than what you're used to. And while we're on the housekeeping note, I am in the process of ranking and organizing and figuring out the schedule for the nickname tournament coming later this summer. So stay tuned for that. Best way to stay in the loop is follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mott at Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, hit me up there as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so that way it gets delivered right to your inbox and you can get a notification. Jimbo_Mott. Tell your friends, spread the word. The nickname tournament is coming and it should be fun. If you were around last summer for our Lovable Loser tournament, that was a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. But like I said, the best way to stay in the loop is just to follow on social media and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're interested in information on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction class, including tickets, all the information you need is in the description. And if you have a business and want to donate something or want to be a sponsor, hit me up for that as well. I can give you the details. All right, well, if you wore your pajamas on inside out or whatever, your rally hats, Lucky's rabbit's foot, whatever, didn't work. Flyers are locked into the 12th pick. Not terrible, not bad, not good though. It is what it is. They have a lot of draft picks though, lots of ways they can maneuver. Looking forward to seeing what Danny Briere can get done. They are in good shape. I will take it. Some final things on Daryl Morey with the Sixers. And there were some people that were upset about this, and I mean, depending on how he goes about doing it, but they're like, why would you go all in? You're going to be out of here. I'm a Sixers fan, and don't mortgage the future, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? You have a finite window. Joe, I believe, is under contract for 2 more years, has a player option for a third. If you can somehow swing and pull like a Howie Roseman with some of these guys that you need to bring in, I'm all for it. But even if you have to take a step back when Joe is done, that is what it is. But you got to go for it now. And, I mean, think about what we talked last week about Ruben Amaro Jr. He went for it. Didn't work out for him, but again, he went for it, and yet that's what you got to do when the window's open. Howie Roseman right now is all in on this 3 to 4 year window that the Eagles have. You got to go for it, and I think when you have a guy like Joe and you know what you need, you just need to go for it, and I don't know, mortgage the future. Like not a big fan of that line anyway, because if you really think about it, if you've ever bought a house, you're mortgaging your future. If you bought a car, you're mortgaging your future. So it is what it is. You make do and you make it work. Sure, things might be tough for a couple of years when you're first starting out, but then you get back. So I say let's go for it, all in. You have, like I said, there is an expiration date on this window, and likely will be 2, possibly 3 years. So why not go all in now and see what you can do? I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, your Phillies are red hot, 10-1 last night. starting to get like '07 to 2011 Philly vibes, where it's just every game is must see. Every game is fun. You never know what you're going to get. They chipped away. It was 4-0, and then Bryce comes up, hits a grand slam, blew the game wide open. Christopher Sanchez was solid. The starting pitching, I mean, the hitting has been very inconsistent, and I think the difference between this year and past years with the Phillies is the pitching staff. But Christopher Sanchez was solid. Spencer Turnbull came in and pitched 2 innings of relief. I believe it was like his second time ever in his career. Said he felt like a baby giraffe because it was uncomfortable. But unfortunately, they have the problem now that they have 6 starters when most teams are struggling to get 5. I do think at some point he will be back in the starting rotation, but it's got to be tough for him. But I mean, again, it's a good issue to have right now. I wouldn't even call it a problem. It's a good issue, but they are red hot. And let's just keep it rolling and for once maybe build up a bigger lead so when the inevitable happens and you go in a little bit of a slump, you get there. They are looking for their 8th in a row. They are looking for their 6th straight on this homestand, looking to sweep the Blue Jays now. But just, man, what a team. And they're fun. This is a fun bunch. And I missed this the other day, but apparently Whit Merrifield in his post-game press conference from, I guess it would be Monday night, basically said, well, I don't know if Trey Turner makes that play that Bryson Stott said. Yes, he was busting balls, but, I mean, he's truth. I don't think Trey Turner makes that play. But just little things like that, it's fun to see. They're back at it this afternoon, 1 o'clock game, looking to close out the Blue Jays and avenge 1993. And if Joe Carter ruined your childhood, Philly Goat has you covered. So if you're anything like me, Joe Carter, you're still scarred and you cringe when you hear that name. But go to phillygoat.com. They have a shirt that says, Joe Carter ruined my childhood. Told you about the Stay Loose and Sexy Baby shirt that they got. So go to Philly Goat. It's great company, great T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, whatever you need. Go check them out. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order. All right. We do have some Eagles news, and apparently Kenny Gainwell was on a podcast and said that part of the issue with the Eagles last year was just the connection piece, was his quote. There's disconnect between the front office and the locker room. Not sure if that was specifically between Howe and Hassan Reddick, but he said guys not talking, and I guess you could, and I think you could tell like there was just a vibe with that team last year. At this point, I hope we can just put that to bed and just move on and look toward the future. It is what it is. At this point, there's nothing we can do about it, and if that constitutes me being soft, then call me Charmin. I don't know. It's just, let's move on. Like, why? That, to me, that's a very old school Philly thing to do, is just harp on something that happened in the past that you can't control, and instead of moving on from it, you just harp and harp and harp. We saw that a lot with Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb. Hell, to this day, I still get all pissed off about the Fog Bowl. But that, like I said, is a very old school mentality, old school Philly. Like, let's get that old Philly out of here, put it behind us. Nothing we do right now is bringing back the 2023 season. So we can learn from it, move on. Let's stop talking about it, because honestly, I am sick of hearing about it. And there goes the light again. I have no idea why. I think it's a camera issue. It just keeps there we go. Now we're back. I guess because I move. I guess if I need to sit still. Anyway, I thought this was a funny story. Or let's put to bed the whole 2023 collapse, whatever you want to call it. Let's just put it to bed. And if that makes me soft, then I'll be soft. But this story was cool. Marcy Keffer, who is a representative from Ohio, and took her time to speak, to give a shout out to her. I guess Toledo is in her district, so she shouted out Toledo, shouted out Quinyon Mitchell, and basically said we should celebrate him, just how much he's meant. Toledo, she said go Rockets, go Ohio, and she said go Birds. So there was a go Birds in Congress the other day, which was kind of funny. And then the other big story with the Eagles was Howie Roseman was on the afternoon show on WIP. And I got to be honest, and hear me out on this first. I didn't get much out of that interview. The only thing that I got, which I didn't realize and I probably should have, was that Jalen was at A.J. Brown's press conference announcing the contract extension. So hopefully that will put to bed that whole narrative. But Howie didn't really say anything that he didn't. And I don't know that the Spike and Ike pushed him much on anything. But at the same time, I don't really know what there is to push him on. Because everybody's happy with the draft. Everybody's happy with the way the team's constructed. He did say they never stop looking at the waiver wire and seeing who's out there and how they can improve the team, which I don't think that was anything groundbreaking or earth-shattering. I think that's what you should do as a good general manager. But, I mean, it was a good feel-good piece. I kind of, as nerdy as he is, I kind of like Howie. And just, like, he owns some things that most general managers don't. And I feel like he doesn't tell you much, but he tells you enough, if that makes sense. But I didn't really get any new information or anything that I'm like, oh, my God, Howie Roseman said, blah, 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 blah. But it was, like, again, it was a feel-good piece. I don't think the host pushed him much. Because I'm sure they want to have access to him in the future. But again, there really wasn't much to push him on right now. I mean, I guess you could push him on again last year, but why? Like, let's move on from it. There's nothing, like, they've moved on. They've gotten better. You can ask him about Hassan Reddick, but again, why? He's on the Jets now. Huff is our guy. Like, I don't know. But again, I mean, he said a lot of the same things you've already heard, but always good to hear Howie on there. So we'll take it. Let me know what you thought. Maybe you picked up something that maybe I missed. But again, the only thing I really picked up was the Jalen thing. Now, I will be completely transparent. I was listening while prepping as well as having the Phillies game in the background, so I may have missed something. But listen, that's such is life. But before we get into today's episode, or this day, I should say, let's do today's question of the day. And we talked about Bryce Harper's, I missed this with the Phillies. We talked about Bryce Harper's grand slam. And I think it's fair to say over the course of his time here in Philly, Bryce Harper, I think one of the words you could use to describe him is clutch. But is he the most clutch player in Philadelphia sports history? And honestly, nobody's jumping out. So that is the question of the day. Is Bryce Harper the most clutch player in Philadelphia sports history? 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know what you think. Yes or no? Bryce Harper, the most clutch player in Philadelphia sports history. I mean, you could lean possibly Schmitty, but he had that terrible 1983 playoff series, but he was clutch in the 70s. AI to a certain point would make some big shots, but he can never win the big one. I don't really know if anybody on the Eagles, maybe Jake Elliott. And it's funny because David Akers could be one that comes to mind, but I think about the missed field goals in the Packers game. So I don't know. Is there a more clutch athlete in Philadelphia sports history than Bryce Harper? 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know your thoughts on that as well as the Howie Roseman interview. Okay, today we're going to go back to 1980. And on this day in 1980, the Flyers beat the Minnesota North Stars 7-3 to clinch their fourth Stanley Cup berth in 7 years. Bill Barber and Reggie Leach, the Riverton Rifle, remember him from the other day, each had 2 goals. Barber also added an assist. Bobby Clark had a goal and 2 assists himself. But the big story was Barber, who tied Reggie Leach's team record for goals in a single playoff series with 9. He also set the series record for points with 12. And as of my count, I looked and I could not find anyone else. He's the only player in NHL history to score 3 shorthanded goals in the same playoff series. And despite that 35-game unbeaten streak that the Flyers had that year and the fact that they rolled through the playoffs to get to the Stanley Cups, Cup Finals, Stanley Cup, not Cups. It's not plural. Stanley Cup Finals. They got steamrolled by the Islanders 4-2, who were about to go on an epic run of 4 straight and start the dynasty that they had. But on this day, it was all Flyers, 7-3 over the Minnesota North Stars. Bill Barber having 2 goals and an assist, tying Reggie Leach's single playoff series record for goals with 9, which we just talked about the other day. The series he had, or the goal, oh my goodness, the game he had 5 goals in. He had 9 for that series. Barber also set the series record for points I'll get it out. Set the team record for points in a series. Sheesh. And is the only NHL player to score 3 shorthanded goals in the same series. But alas, it was all Islanders, as the Flyers could not win the Stanley Cup, losing for the second time at that point, I guess it would be the second time in 5 years they had lost it. Okay, finally today, it's a family affair, and today we're going to look at and stick with the Flyers. Mark Howe, defenseman for the Flyers. Mark Howe had a great career, 10 years in Philly, 138 goals, 342 assists. He was a 3-time Norris runner-up for best defenseman in the game, 3-time All-Star with the Flyers, and one of the best two-way defensemen of the 80s and possibly ever in the NHL. He is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He holds numerous NHL records for American-born defensemen. He does have the most shorthanded goals by a defenseman of anyone of any nationality. Unfortunately, he is not the best player in his own family. That's right, he is the son of Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, one of the greatest to ever lace up the skates. Mark, Gordie, and their older brother Marty all played on the same team in 1973, the Houston Aeros of the WHA. His uncle Vic also played 33 games in the NHL, but then also had a long career in the minor leagues. But I would not consider this one, even though it was father's son, the case where the Flyers had the wrong Howe, because Mark Howe had one hell of a career with the Flyers, despite never really getting over that hump and winning a Stanley Cup. His number 2 is retired by the Flyers. He's in their Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, when you are Gordie Howe's son, you never can quite get up to that thing. But today's family affair is Mark Howe, son of Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, brother of Marty, nephew of Vic. Just an outstanding hockey family. But Mark Howe did pretty good for making a name for himself despite being Gordie Howe's son. On this day in 1980, the Flyers beat the North Stars 7-3. Bill Barber tying Reggie Leach's record for playoff goals in a series with 9. Also setting the team record for playoff points in a series with 12. And then scoring 3 shorthanded goals to boot in that same series. But the Flyers would lose to the New York Islanders, who were about to become a dynasty. Let me know what you think. Bryce Harper, is he the most clutch Philadelphia sports player of all time? 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line, the new and improved Back to the Future voice and text line. No more waiting 7 times for you to get into the voicemail. So let me know your thoughts. Or is it time to put the whole 2023 Eagles season to bed? I think so, but let me know what you think. Can the Phillies make it 8 in a row and sweep the entire homestand? We'll have that tomorrow, but man, Nola's on the mound. So it's just like every day. It's like, oh, okay, maybe this is the game they lose, but then it's like Nola. And then it's like, oh, there's Ranger. Oh, Zach Wheeler. Oh, yeah, Tawan Walker off of the IL. He's doing well. Christopher Sanchez. It's just phenomenal what this team is doing right now. And again, let's build up a lead, build up those wins now while we can. All right, this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. It's going to be a hot one today after the Thunder. You might be able to hear the thunderstorms in the background here as they're rolling through. But it's going to be a warm one today, so stay cool out there. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.